Welcome back to the deep dive. I want to start today with a feeling I think we all know really, really well.
Hmm.
It's that feeling when you're in a conversation or a meeting and you feel this invisible pull to just go faster.
A magnetic pole. Yeah.
You talk faster, you nod faster, you interrupt yourself to fill a silence that hasn't even happened yet, like being on a treadmill that someone else is controlling.
And they keep bumping the speed up.
Exactly. Just by point one every few seconds.
It is, I think, the defining sensation of modern life, isn't it? We treat speed as a proxy for competence.
Oh, totally.
If I answer you instantly, I'm good at my job. If I pause to think, well, then I'm buffering or I'm checked out.
We are terrified of buffering.
Mm.
But today, we're looking at a case study that asks a pretty terrifying question.
Mm.
What happens if you just stop running?
And we should be clear, this isn't about, moving to a cabin in the woods.
Right, not throwing your phone in a river.
Yeah.
We're looking at a narrative case study called Anvika from the collection The Art of Unhurried Presence. Specifically, we're digging into episode 14 of her arc.
And it's such a specific type of study. It's not about productivity hacks. It's about a woman who decides to stay in the high-speed world. She keeps her job, she keeps her friends, but she just unilaterally decides to stop matching the velocity around her.
Which, let's be honest, sounds like a recipe for social suicide. I mean, the premise hooked me because it just feels like a dare.
It does.
The world is screaming, go, 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 and Anvika decides to be the one person in the room moving at, I don't know, a human pace. So our mission for this deep dive is to figure out what actually happens when you do that.
Does the world punish you? Do you get fired?
Or is the friction somewhere else entirely?
And friction is the key word there. We assume the friction will be between us and other people, but what we see in Anvika's story is that the real friction, it's internal.
A battle with your own nervous system.
Exactly, and your deep-seated need to synchronize with the tribe.
So let's paint the before picture, because I think a lot of us are going to see ourselves in this. The narrative describes Anvika's default mode as perpetual matching.
Which is a classic survival mechanism. If she was talking to a fast talker, she became a fast talker.
If someone was anxious, she'd mirror that anxiety.
In psychology, we talk about co-regulation and mirroring. We do it to show people we're safe, that we're with them. If you're frantic and I'm calm, that creates dissonance.
It feels dangerous.
To the primitive brain, yeah. So Anvika was doing what most of us do. She was sacrificing her own internal rhythm to maintain external harmony.
There's this one detail that really got me. It says she would fill the space before it grew uncomfortable.
Ah, yes.
I do this constantly. If there's a 2-second pause, I panic. It's like my job is to throw a verbal sandbag in there to stop the flood.
Oh, totally. Yeah, for sure. Just noise.
That's the people pleaser's panic. We interpret silence as disapproval. We think, oh no, the connection is dropping. I need a signal I'm still here. Anvika's before state was defined by that hypervigilance. Okay, so she hits a point, a realization point, and she shifts into this now state. But she doesn't just, decide to chill. She implements 3 very specific and very difficult behavioral changes.
And they are agonizing because they go right against that survival instinct we just talked about.
So the first one,
She started listening without preparing a response.
which is
Yeah.
how? How do you even do that? I feel like 90% of my listening is just waiting for my turn to speak or just reloading my ammo.
Most of us are. We listen to reply, not to understand. We're drafting our comeback or our Me Too story while the other person's barely halfway through. And Vika just stopped reloading. She forced herself to sit with an empty chamber, so to speak.
And that leads right to the second change, which might be even harder. She allowed pauses to exist.
The air in the room.
Yeah.
When a sentence ended, she didn't jump in with the CPR paddles. She just let the silence sit there.
And the third one, she let others finish. No uh-huhs, no rights, no finishing their sentences for them. She just waited.
Now, just pause for a second and imagine doing this. Yeah. You're in a high-stakes meeting, or even just having drinks with a friend who talks really fast.
Yeah.
You stop nodding frantically, you stop saying totally, you wait 3 seconds before you answer. What does your gut tell you is going to happen?
My gut says they're going to ask if I'm okay, or think I'm mad at them, or honestly, they're going to think I'm stupid.
Yeah,
Like my processor is slow.
exactly. We fear that breaking the rhythm will cause a crash. We think if we stop dancing, the music dies.
But this is where the deep dive gets really interesting. Because Anvika did this.
Yeah.
She committed to it, and what happened?
Nothing.
Nothing.
And this is the part that just defies our anxiety. The narrative says explicitly, nothing dramatic happened.
Which is almost disappointing. You want the movie moment where everyone stops and just looks at her.
But that's the reality check. The text notes, life did not slow down. People continued to speak. Questions were asked. The world didn't stop spinning just because she stopped rushing.
I have to push back on this a little bit, though. Is it really true that no one noticed? Because if I'm talking to a brick wall, I notice. If she's just staring, isn't that awkward?
Well, there's a huge difference between staring like a brick wall and listening with presence. But the broader point here is about the spotlight effect.
Right.
We think everyone is analyzing our every micro-reaction. We think our silence is deafening. But in reality, most people are so consumed by their own internal monologue that they don't even clock that you aren't interrupting them. They just feel heard.
So the lack of external drama is actually just proof of how self-absorbed we all are.
In a way, yes, but it also shows how flexible social dynamics really are. We think the rules are rigid, must answer in 0.5 seconds, but Anvika proved they're actually quite elastic. The system didn't break.
Okay, so the world didn't break. But Anvika almost did, because even though nobody was yelling at her, the narrative describes this quiet tension building up, and it wasn't coming from outside.
This is the most critical insight of the whole thing. The tension was entirely intrapersonal. It was inside her.
Let's unpack that, because if I'm getting away with it, if no one's mad, why am I stressed?
Because you're breaking an addiction. We're addicted to the pace. The narrative describes a temptation to speed up that felt like a gravitational pull.
Oh, yeah.
Think about the moving walkway at the airport. You know, when you step off onto the normal floor, you feel that weird lurch.
Yes, like your body expects the speed.
Anvika was stepping off the moving walkway while everyone else was still on it. Her body, her nervous system was just screaming, "This isn't safe! Catch up! Synchronize!"
It says she felt that slowing down was risky, and that she worried staying at her own pace might be misunderstood. I think that fear is real. In a corporate setting especially, we conflate speed with intelligence.
We absolutely do. The person who talks fastest is the smartest, right? We live in a culture that has mistaken urgency for importance.
That's a huge one.
And Anvika hit this realization hard. She began to notice, and I think this is the quote of the episode, how often urgency was mistaken for importance, and how quickly pace replaced presence.
Pace replaced presence. That is hard. It's like, if I'm running around with my hair on fire, I must be doing something critical. If I'm sitting quietly and thinking, I must be slacking off.
It's the busy badge of honor. Urgency is a costume we wear to validate our existence. If I'm rushed, I'm needed. By stripping away the pace, Anvika stripped away that costume. She had to confront the bare reality of the moment.
That sounds awful, actually. Incredibly vulnerable. You're saying she couldn't hide behind the blur of motion anymore?
Precisely. Slowness is high definition. Speed is a blur. When you slow down, you see everything. The awkwardness, the truth of the relationship. You can't just gloss over things. That's why the tension was so high.
And she's doing this in the middle of her life. This isn't on a yoga mat. It's when someone is demanding an answer from you right now.
That's the art in the title, the integration. The narrative notes her responses became fewer, more deliberate. But then there's this fascinating shift. The text says her silences became less apologetic.
I love that. Unapologetic silence. Because usually my silence is basically begging for forgiveness. It's saying, I'm so sorry I don't have the answer yet. Please don't hate me.
That's the deficit mindset again. You feel like you owe the other person your speed. Anvika flipped it to a sufficiency mindset. She realized her presence, her actual thoughtful attention was enough.
It reminds me of negotiation tactics. The person who speaks less usually holds the power. But she wasn't doing this to dominate, was she?
No, and that's a crucial distinction. In negotiation, silence is a weapon. You use it to make the other person squirm. Anvika wasn't trying to make others squirm. She was trying to stop herself from squirming.
She was reclaiming her own autonomy.
Exactly, refusing to let external pressure dictate her internal rhythm.
And this leads to the big epiphany on what the text calls integration and independence. There's a line, awareness does not need agreement, and clarity does not require synchronization.
Clarity does not require synchronization. I just want to pause on that because it goes against everything we are socially conditioned to believe.
Right. We're taught that to connect, we have to be on their wavelength, vibrate at their frequency.
And Vika discovered that's false. You can actually understand someone better if you don't merge with them. Imagine you're in a rushing river. If you just get swept away by the current, that's synchronization.
You're moving with the water, but you have no footing.
Right. And Vika became a rock in the river. The water rushed around her. She felt its force. She understood its speed, but she didn't become the water.
That's such a powerful image. Yeah. But it's also kind of lonely. Being the rock sounds lonely. The water's all going somewhere together.
It can be. The narrative doesn't shy away from that. It separates you. But it also gives you a vantage point nobody else has. The source notes that Anvika didn't decide the world's pace was wrong. She didn't become a moralizer.
Thank God for that. There's nothing worse than the person who finds meditation and then judges everyone else for being stressed.
Right. She validated the world. The world's pace was not wrong, the text says, but it did not have to be hers. That's the declaration of independence. It's realizing you can run, I can walk, we can still have a conversation.
So she's fully engaged, but at a different RPM. She's grounded without withdrawing. But I keep coming back to this. Why did no one notice? The narrative really emphasizes this unacknowledged change.
I think this is the test. If you're slowing down because you want people to praise you for being so calm, you're still playing the external validation game.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's just a different kind of performance.
Exactly. The fact that no one pointed it out and she kept doing it anyway proves the shift was for her. It wasn't a performance. The lack of external validation was the point.
Okay, so let's bring this down to the practical level. The source material wraps with 3 key takeaways. The first one is, the world's pace does not define inner rhythm.
This is the core principle. You're the thermostat, not the thermometer. You set the temperature, you don't just reflect it. But let's be real, this is incredibly hard.
It takes more energy to stand still in a rushing crowd than to move with them. The second takeaway, presence can exist inside activity.
This creates a whole new definition of stillness, doesn't it? We think stillness means doing nothing, sitting on a cushion.
Staring at a sunset.
This argues that stillness is a how, not a what. You can be answering emails with stillness. It's portable.
Stillness can move with you. That's the third one. Like being the eye of the storm.
But, and I'm so glad the narrative included this, Anvika hasn't mastered this. The story doesn't end with her floating on a cloud of perfect peace.
No, it ends with her still in the process.
Hmm.
It says she sensed this way of being was quietly beginning to reshape her choices. That feels ominous and exciting at the same time.
I think it means that once you stop rushing, you stop automatically saying yes. Speed makes us compliant. Can you do this? Yes. Can you take this on? Sure. We say yes before we've even thought about it.
Speed hides the cost.
Correct. When you slow down, you see the cost. You see that saying yes to this meeting means saying no to that deep work. Anvika is starting to realize her new pace is going to require her to make different life choices.
That's the danger or the promise of this whole thing. You might realize you don't like the life you've built. You built a life for a sprinter, and now you're a walker.
And that's why the tension she felt was so real. It wasn't just about a pause in conversation. It was the intuition that her entire way of living was about to be challenged.
It's a lot heavier than just taking a breath. It's about authority. Who has authority over your next 10 seconds? Is it the person asking the question? Or is it you?
And to take that authority back feels like a rebellion. A quiet rebellion, but a rebellion nonetheless.
So for the person listening who is currently double speeding this podcast, we see you, and who's thinking, this is nice, but I have a deadline in 20 minutes. What's the takeaway?
Well, we're not telling them to miss the deadline, no. We're suggesting that the panic around the deadline is optional. The work takes the time the work takes. The panic adds nothing.
It actually degrades the quality.
It does. You can type fast without feeling like you're being chased by a bear. It's separating the physical speed from the emotional urgency.
Which brings us to the final thought. The narrative ends on a question, and I think it's a question we should all carry around with us today.
It's a question about the source of the noise.
Right. We always blame the world. My boss is demanding. My kids are loud. But Anvika's story flips the mirror. The question is, if you paused right now, not to quit, but just to stop rushing inside your own head, would the tension you feel be coming from the world around you?
Or would it be coming from your own terrifying fear of what happens when the noise finally stops?
What happens when you have to actually sit with yourself?
That is usually the person we are running from.
A terrifying thought to end on, but a necessary one. Thanks for slowing down with us today. We'll see you in the next deep dive.